What is going on, guys and girls? How are you doing today? It's Roleplayer here once again, and Delirium is almost there upon us, and it's about time you guys start thinking about your starter guides, starter builds for the upcoming league. And I want to release the new video for this case because, you know, previously I had a really good video about the Metamorph league starters and it had 5 builds in there, but this time I'm not going to release an absolutely new one. I want to expand the original one, not just re-record. I want to expand it because, you know, there are more builds that I played this league which I believe can be absolutely fantastic league starters, which I played as a league starters in the Metamorph league, and I want to add this to the pool of fantastic league starters that I had prior to Metamorph. So this video will have not 5 but 10 league starters, guys, which are absolutely great. And if you have no idea what are my league starters compared to the other people, is because my league starters, you can do all content with just one build. It's not like you start playing then respec into something. No bullshit, guys. You start with a build, you can do all content, including all the bosses in the game, using one single build if you wish. So without further ado, let's get going. Before we go further into the video, I would like to stop for a second and thank my Patreon supporters and Twitch subscribers. You guys are making a huge impact on my life and allow me to get going and continue creating content for all of you. Thank you so much. If you want to make it into the list and immortalize yourself on the internet, join Patreon to get sneak peeks and behind the scenes footage of my work. I'm always looking for feedback on my content, guys, in order to improve, so making sure you always leave comment, like or dislike. Your reaction is very important. And remember,
you, yes you, are making a difference.
The first build on the list is the Trap Saboteur, and the Arc has been buffed in the current Metamorph league, guys, and for a good reason, because they nerfed it pretty fucking hard. And Arc was an absolutely glorious experience back in the day, but it was nerfed pretty badly, and to be honest, for no fucking reason, just to, you know, to shift the meta further, like GGG always do. But slightly and steadily it becomes unnerfed again, so the people get going, and I think that finally the build will be a way more viable again, because the range becomes better and better. And I think that the Arc Trap is one of the best Arc variations ever existing. Not many people know that I was the one who invented the Arc Trap itself. And this is me in September 2017, and this is the Harbinger League, and I'm testing my Trap Saboteur build long before people started giving a shit about the Arc or traps in general, because traps were greatly behind mines at this point, and practically no one gave a damn about them or the Arc, except for being a self-casting spell. But I saw the opportunity for this kind of combination, and I started testing it. And eventually I even made it to the yellow tier maps, and it was a pretty solid experience with one big problem: no single target damage. And this is where the build practically ended till the Incursion League 3.3, as when the major buff happened. And this character that I'm playing in the Harbinger that you see right now, it was September 2017. I call him Please Buff Traps, with a high hope that maybe one day Trap and Arc will get a buff. And in 3.3 it happened, and everyone in their grandmother started creating Arc Trap builds. But guess what, guys? I already had the build ready to get going. I've only been waiting for the buff, which happened in 3.3. The Arc damage got a buff. The remaining chain really fixed the bossing problem. There was also the Lightning Spire Trap introduced, and all this together make Arc Trap one of the strongest meta builds of the Incursion League. And first I want to say a couple of things about the difference between the Arc Traps, Arc Mines, and the Arc Totems. So first of all, the difference between the mines, because mines requires to be detonated, guys, and this is a pretty clunky experience as a whole. You know, Arc Traps, you don't need to detonate them, just throw them and run around and let them spring themselves and deal damage. There's no bullshit there, there's no extra button pressed. Now, comparing to the totems, another big difference is that Arc Trap and Mines, when you throw them, they're invincible if you're a Saboteur. But Totems really suffer. They always get killed fast. They practically have very weak damage, and they usually get killed, especially in the boss's encounters. They just cannot sustain any damage fucking whatsoever. Just instantly get killed by big slams, balls, whatever, before they even can do any damage. With the Arc Traps and Arc Mines, it's not a problem, with Arc Traps being way superior over everything else. Overall, playing Arc Trap was an absolute blast and a major success. I cleared all content within the game for the first time ever. I did my first Deathless Uber-Atziri attempt, and the very first, actually, Uber-Atziri ever, which I killed, and the very first Uber Elder that I killed, and it was without failing any sets or whatever. I went absolutely blind, not knowing the fight, my first ever fight ever, and I did it. Imagine how much firepower the build had, because the skill actually pulled me through the entire fight with a lot of damage. The build actually sustained the damage pretty fine, even considering pretty low health. There was acrobatics and insane amount of regeneration based on the amount of traps you trigger. So overall, a pretty tanky, solid build. And I can't imagine, even after all the nerfs, any better League starter builds in the game right now. Another build on the list is the Spectre Summoner build with skeletons on top, and this is one of my all-time easiest favorite summoner builds for the Necromancer Ascendancy. You know, back in the day, I really wanted to revamp the Spectre build as a whole, especially after the buff when Spectre became kind of permanent. And yeah, now it's way easier to play Spectres than before. And the deal behind this build is that it's extremely easy, straightforward, and newbie friendly. It doesn't require any tremendous amount of experience. And it's one of the builds that is kind of, you know, noob proof. You can't really fail with this build, no matter how bad you are, no matter how few experience you get within the game, because the minions just carry you for anything. And even after the buffs and the nerfs to the minions, this is still one of the most powerful builds existing in the game. The build relies on Spectres, which do like 2 to 3 million damage, and there's also the skeletons in the helm on the 5-link, which also deliver about million DPS on top, which is what I invented and what I upgraded in this build, because many people just gave up on skeletons and put them like on a 4-link or just using the animated guard instead. But I did like a fully pledged Spectre build with a very strong additional single target on top just in case, and the build was an absolute success. What the build is about is just a very classic Spectre cookie cutter summoner build, which literally is very easy to understand, newborn friendly, and can carry you through the entire game. I killed all content with this build. Uber-Atziri, Uber Elder, no problems. Totally recommended. One important thing to mention about the Spectre as a whole is that really like the field of experiment. There are many Spectres in the game which you can summon, and if you don't know, Spectres are literally the monsters that you kill and then summon as a Spectres to manipulate and deal damage. And this is the Solar Guard build, but it doesn't mean that you need to stick with this. For example, minions, you can experiment and try some different Spectres, and this is part of the fun in playing Spectres as a whole. You can go Slave Drivers, you can do Undying Incinerators, you can do whatever, practically, you know, Val, Reason Advocates. There are many cool Spectres, and I also experimented myself with some, and I have separate videos on different types of Spectres. So it's a very cool experimenting build about minion summoning and necromancy. So definitely, guys, check this out. The third build on the list is my pretty much all-time favorite melee build, and this is Earthquake Juggernaut. You know, I really love this build, and this is the third time I completely recreate and revamp the build to its full fucking glory. If you want to have a big dig damage, massive AoE, and impressive tankiness, and while staying melee at the same time, this is definitely the build for you. I mean, the build has everything, and it's so much better over the years. The melee damage has been buffed in multiple ways, the earthquake damage has been buffed in multiple ways, and there's an absolutely fantastic shockwave support that also adds on top of that even more damage. All this combined made an absolutely fantastic earthquaking experience, guys. I can totally recommend this build. Definitely. One thing that I want to mention about this build is that I have a very old video guide which unfortunately doesn't do justice because the skill and has dramatically changed and it got so much better and stronger. But I will be uploading new fresh path of building guides with the leveling tree, so I don't think you will have any problems navigating and building the build as it should be. At the same time, I want to mention, guys, that I killed Uber Elder in under 2 minutes with the Earthquake Juggernaut, which I'm pretty sure have no one ever done before, and the build has all the damage, all the tankiness, and all the speed you need to be a really successful melee character. It's probably one of the few melee builds that are so fucking enjoyable, just jumping on your monster, just smacking with your big fucking dick and everything just explodes, like literally one hit, one death, oh wait, multiple deaths. So yeah, the build is so enjoyable. I literally like return to this build once in a while and keep replaying it, making something better, like optimizing, dealing more fucking damage, and every time it surprises me. This is probably the kind of a skill that only gets better as a good Scotch whiskey or wine that grows stronger over the years and never gets old. No matter when you're gonna play this and how you're gonna play it, it just gets better, better, and better. And this is one of the kind skill in my opinion. Totally recommended, guys. The fourth on the list is once again my Toxic Rain and Herald of Agony Pathfinder build. And so far, surprisingly, this is my most popular build with over like 100 and I believe 70 pages of feedback on the forums, which is absolutely insane. And is still incredibly popular among the community, and for a good reason. It's a very in-depth, complex, at the same time flexible and easy build to play, which never fails. The way that Toxic Rain is kind of a top-down rain of arrows with deals chaos damage over time, pretty much like Acoustic Arrow, but it's better than Acoustic Arrow in many aspects. A couple of things which are very different. First is that it's a top-down skill, and it means there are no obstacles needed to block your projectiles practically. With Acoustic Arrow, there's always a problem because it shoots like ahead, and if there's any rocks or anything, cliffs, you know, stairs or whatever, you just get fucked and your arrows just get blocked and you just don't hit the enemies. For Toxic Rain, it's not a big issue because it's always a top-down skill. It always hits no matter the case. Another important thing which is different from the Acoustic Arrow is that Acoustic Arrow needs piercing. Without the pierce, Acoustic Arrow just sucks ass completely. And Toxic Rain doesn't give a shit because, you know, it's once again is a top-down skill. It doesn't need to pierce anything. It just falls from the top. And the third and probably the most important thing that differentiates the two skills, which have definitely a lot of things in common, is that Acoustic Arrow doesn't stack. So if your arrow hits like the enemy twice, it just refreshes the duration of your poison, but it doesn't stack. But Toxic Arrow does stack. It does lower damage on paper, but the amount of poison and physical damage and poison and chaos damage over time you can stack on the enemies is absolutely ridiculous. And that's why it works miracles. Even if you're not a very successful, fast, good player, it doesn't matter. Poison will do the job, and this is why the build is so incredibly popular, so strong no matter the case, and can do all content. Totally recommended. Another important thing to mention about the build is that it's probably one of the most flexible builds and doesn't really require any specific gear to make it work. You can run any physical ball like Lioness Glare or Dark's Corn or pretty much anything, even the Dawnfledge Prism. But one of the best early options is Quill Rain, and guys, good news, Quill Rain got a little bit unnerved. It got 10% of the damage back from 40% less to 30% less, so it's a little better, and it definitely brings build back a little bit, back by back, little by little. Next build on the list is the SRS Necromancer build, and several leagues ago I took the well-known SRS and brought it to the absolutely different astronomical cosmic space exploration level, and it was a super powerful build. I farmed Uber Elders like nothing with this build, and after a couple of patches it was nerfed a little bit because it lost some mods on the staff that we could craft, but it's still there. It's still very powerful, and these stuffs can be still crafted in different ways, and there is still a very cheap endgame weapon called the Realm Ender Staff, which you can buy for like fucking 5 to 10 chaos and do all content in the game with this. The build is not the fastest, not the strongest, not the tankiest. It's a little bit squishy, a little bit slow, but you know, it's just one of those builds that can really push forward no matter what, no matter how new you are, no matter how bad you are. The build doesn't care. The homing fucking raging spirits, flying balls of shit, they just don't care. They just fucking fly and destroy the fuck out of everyone. They just don't give a shit. They just kill things. They're just there to seek and destroy. That's what SRS guys are, and I can totally recommend this build for absolutely anyone out there. The build hasn't been nerfed in any really like kind of substantial form or way. It is still very powerful, it is still very strong, and it can do all content in the game, definitely. And it's absolutely fantastic for the Delirium because there will be a lot of monsters. You don't want to aim like in all directions. You just shoot the SRS, they go chase and they kill stuff. Next build on the list is the Reckoning Cyclone Gladiator with Max Block, and this is one of my really favorite builds. It's also became very popular in the recent patches, surprisingly, after the nerf. But yeah, it's still incredibly strong, and this was recorded after the nerf just to showcase there is still a shit ton of damage. Previously, it just completely wrecked all bosses in under a second, but after they toned down the damage by about like 60% on the counter attack, it is still pretty insane, just not one-shotting things. It's a pretty okay, semi-affordable build, and we can push it as a league starter by just playing as pretty typical physical Impaled Cyclone, and then transition into the Reckoning as you get the Abyssus, as you get the Helm Chain, as you get the good chest, as you get the all the juice for that. This is where Reckoning start killing things even better than the Cyclone, where Cyclone cannot reach Reckoning, just shreds, and bosses just kill themselves when they touch you with the counterattacks. That's what Reckoning is. So if you've never played something cool aside from being just a Cyclone, which is pretty boring, so this adds a juice cherry on top, and definitely try it out, guys. This is very strong, very powerful build, very tanky, one of the three tankiest builds I have ever played for the last 7 years in PoE, and it still craps on everything around, and it's still one of my favorite builds in the game. Check this one out. Another build that I can totally recommend is the Siege Ballista deck stacking Hierophant using the Iron Commander. This was my league starter in the Metamorph, and is absolutely sick. I cleared all content, all maps, all bosses included Cyrus. I started with nothing from scratch, and I leveled up to 95 and destroyed everything on my way. You know, it's also one of the coolest builds I've honestly ever played, because it was the squishiest builds I've ever played. I rarely play builds when I would have like 4.5 thousand life, and I couldn't believe how tanky this build was, because it was stacking evasion, because I was stacking dexterity, and so I was stacking evasion. It was over 25,000 evasion. So practically the shit just never hit me, and I was running like crazy, killing things left and right, you know, not giving a shit about whatever is ahead of me. I did occasionally die between 94 and 95, but aside from that, it was surprisingly tanky build for such an enormously small, tiny life pool that you see here, which is pretty insane. So the build strength is definitely how easy it is to take off the ground, and it's probably the cheapest league starter builds I've ever played in my life, because the Iron Commander was 15 chaos for the 6 link in the Metamorph. Just imagine that. 15 chaos for the 6 link. It was as a price of the Divine Orb, and it was a fairly popular build in the league. Definitely a lot of people realized how strong it is. The single target damage is up to 10 to 12 billion Shaper DPS, which is absolutely ridiculous. And deck stacking is still there in the Delirium, so definitely guys check it out if you want to play something cool, something cheap, something unorthodox, something new to try it out as these Ballistas out there in the Hierophant Ascendancy. Definitely try it out, highly recommend it. Another build on the list is the Ancestral Warchief Chieftain build, and this is one of the strongest single target boss killing builds I've ever played. In the PoE, I was surprised how much damage I squeezed out of that, because it kind of was a resident sleeper. It was not a popular build. I took it, I juiced it up with the, you know, the modern stuff like the Conqueror's Exalted Orbs, the Warlords, the Hunters and all this stuff. I squeezed everything I could from this build, and it killed Conquerors in 1 fucking second, guys. And assuming that the damage of the bosses was really improved, like the Shaper has 100 million HP right now with the Awakening level 8, and the build just seemed like it did damage as the buffs haven't really happened, like it was pre-buff. There was so much damage in this build, guys. The clear speed is a bit of lackluster. It's not the fastest build, it's not the craziest AoE, it's pretty slow, it's pretty, you know, kind of even boring at times, but, you know, it's kind of the build that never fails. If you're a new player, if you haven't really played much PoE, if you want to go really far into the end game, and the most importantly kill all bosses in the game, this is the build for you guys, because, you know, killing trash is not really an issue, but bosses is what fucks you hard in this game. And if you have struggling with the bosses, you will not get far, you will die, you will get killed, you will not progress into the end game. This build solves the issue. It's pretty cheap. It can use Tukohama's Fortress, which is a pretty cheap shield, and can absolutely obliterate all content in the game and all boss in the game for a pretty moderately and low budget possible. So definitely check it out. Another build that I want to show you guys and can recommend is a Stormbrand, a Mono Storm Hierophant that I played in the Metamorph at the very end of the league. This is a pretty interesting build that uses the Hierophant Ascendancy and the Mono Storm shield, which sacrifices your mana to give you enormous amount of added lightning damage. With the new support skill jumps introduced in the Delirium called the Arcane Cloak and the Archmage support, I have a feeling that the build will have way more popularity than it is now, because, you know, it was kind of a meme build that I created just for science using the new unique called the Mana Storm, but I have a feeling that with the Archmage support, Mana Storm might not be needed, and we might just use the Archmage and use all that increased mana on us for the purpose of added lightning damage instead of the shield. So time will tell, but I have a feeling that the build has definitely a lot of potential. And there is also a fantastic new passive for the brands, and the brands get more damage, there's more brands and all that stuff. I have a feeling that a lot more people will play the brands and the Hierophant as a whole. As the build itself, it's an okay build. It doesn't really, you know, shoot to the stars. It's okay mapping, it's okay bossing. It doesn't one-shot things, it doesn't clear things in under a second, but it definitely is a viable build. It can do all content. I kill Cyrus multiple times with this build. So it's absolutely viable. If you've never played brands, you've never played Hierophant, you want to play something unique using your giant pool of mana, this is definitely a build that I can recommend. Try it out. It's pretty cool, it's pretty unique, it's pretty fun, it works, it shreds, and it kills. The last build on the list is probably my all-time favorite spell builds, and this is the Essence Drain Occultist, which can also be played as a Trickster. I have the path of building for the Trickster version too. Overall, it's the most, I would say, smoothest spells in the game, which literally never fails. And if you want to play a League starter, and if you never played spells, if you never played damage over time, low life character, this is definitely a build for you, because it's just so strong, so smooth, so decently fast. It's also incredibly tanky. Even after the energy shield nerfs, you can still gather about 10,000 energy shield with some mediocre investment, I would say. So, you know, it's one of those builds that practically never fails, and it's like a guaranteed to drag you very far into the end game, which also can do all content like Uber Series, Uber Elder, simply because the damage is there, the tankiness is there, the speed is there, and you know, it's one of the possibly smoothest spell builds in the entire game. I also been carrying Uber Elders with this build in the Synthesis League. This is where I created and updated the build guide. So guys, totally recommend it. If you've never played the damage over time spellcaster, definitely build for you to consider. A couple of important things to mention about the difference between the Trickster and the Occultist. Back in the day when I created the build, I strictly made it as an Occultist because it was way far superior in terms of tankiness. Trickster was always very fast character, very smooth, he could recover really quickly and was insanely speedy and fast caster, but he lacked tankiness, and Occultist was far ahead with over like 2000.5 more energy shield. But now, after the nerfs to the Occultist and buffs to the Trickster and nerfs to the Trickster, I would say they are pretty close. The only difference between those two is the Occultist cannot be stunned while he has energy shield, and at the same time he has the kind of built-in Wither Totem in him, and he casts Wither stacks just by walking near the bosses, so you don't need a Wither Totem. At the same time, Trickster cannot be stunned only when he have Ghost Shrouds on him, and this is a bit tricky because if you get hit and lose your Ghost Shrouds, then you can be perma-stunned and die. It happened quite a bit times of me on my next Arctic Breath Trickster build, so I learned that overall Occultist is kind of a more reliable, tankier character even after all the nerfs, so I can still recommend going Occultist over Trickster in most cases.